Hey, what's up? And welcome back to Interpreting the Stars, where today we're starting a brand new preparation marathon. This time we're talking about James Bond, 007, guys, starting with the first film, Dr. No. There have been so many of these movies, guys. My plan is to release a new review every week for James Bond, and by the time I'm done, if my math is correct, No Time to Die should be releasing to digital home release. It could come out later, it could come out before, but it should be right around that time. Also, I've done this before, sort of. A few years ago, when I was preparing to see Skyfall for the first time, I went back and I watched all of the classic James Bond films for the first time, and I reviewed them all on my website, daveexamensmovies.com. However, this was again a few years ago, before I really had a rating model, and I was clearly biased because my current expectations of James Bond and what that means to me, so my experience as a whole wasn't always the best, but I'm curious to see how my tastes have changed over the years now that I have that experience. I'm simpering with excitement. Let's get cracking. This review is brought to you by the word of the day, simper, to smile in a silly, affected, or ingratiating manner. Dr. No introduced the world to James Bond 007, played by Sean Connery, when he is sent to investigate the disappearances of an MI6 agent and his secretary, and to discover if the disappearances have anything to do with some radio interferences that they've been picking up, which was messing with NASA rocket launches at Cape Canaveral, and if it is, what exactly that means. So when I first saw and reviewed this film, I wasn't a huge fan for a variety of reasons, but one of the main ones was that it was a little bit confusing, especially when you compare it to current Bond films. The current mission is quickly explained to Bond in the beginning of the film without any real significance or explanation. It's just, hey, these people disappeared and they were investigating some issues NASA's been having with their rockets. Go see if there's a connection. It doesn't exactly say why though, and who cares if there's this radio interference? It doesn't sound like this big spy operation, at least not in the beginning, and that's one of the main issues that I had with it. It didn't feel like a spy movie. It was like a mystery and Bond was this detective. There were no gadgets, which was actually a huge surprise to me when I first saw this movie. My second viewing was still met with some confusion story-wise, but not nearly as much as I had the first time around. This time I was particularly looking at Sean Connery's presentation of how he portrayed James Bond, and that's actually something I highly enjoyed, more so than I think I ever did before. He may possibly be the most calm, collected, coolly attitude Bond in existence. He expects the unexpected, unlike any Bond ever. He never shows a hint of shock or surprise. He just expects something bad is going to happen, and when it does, he's sitting there with his legs crossed, ready to deal with it. I mean, during the most tense scenes, he might as well be sitting there yawning because it's basically elementary to him. And I enjoyed that aspect about his character because that's how James Bond should be, a master in his craft. Nothing gets him down, and he's ready for anything. But there really is an issue with the story. There's something off about that level of urgency here because I couldn't care less about the stupid rocket launches being sabotaged because the audience isn't really told why it's happening. I think it has a much stronger connection and significance to audiences that watched it when it was released in 1962 because of the space race that was going on at the same exact time, which is kind of what this film revolves around. That makes it so much more impactful for the viewer if they're already tense about this relevant, ongoing struggle in real life. And this subject matter was pretty much before its time if you think about it. But only if you think about it. This film came out nearly 60 years ago, so the space race is no longer relevant. At least not to a blind audience watching Dr. No for the first time. People aren't thinking about the space race anymore. We've gone to the moon, we've been there, and we've done that. Now, whenever you have these huge franchises, I try to come up with a system to differentiate between them. You'll remember Dr. No as the one with the mad scientist named Dr. No, who was the first operative that you ever meet attached to the Spectre name. He's messing with rockets because that has something to do with the space race and controlling who actually gets to space. You have a couple of Bond girls. The one you might remember the most is Honey Rider, who likes to collect seashells. I'm not even kidding. She's this random chick on a beach collecting seashells by the seashore. She really likes seashells, and so does her dad, who went missing years ago. And because she's a female, Bond is very interested in her, and that's the movie. I think as a general rule, this film has aged okay. There are areas that could use improvement, like the third act has a lot of goofy looking quarantine suits that are a bit hard to take seriously, but it does do a lot of smart, realistic spy things too, like how James Bond places a strand of hair on a door to see if anyone shows up rifling through his things. Not exactly super spy tech, but it's still pretty brilliant nonetheless. So it's not exactly going to match the current version of James Bond, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's horrible. I rated Dr. No 69%, 69 out of 100 possible stars, granting it the letter grade of D, just missing a C- grade, unfortunately. I will have you know, though, that this rating is relatively higher than my original score, which was 10% lower at 59%, so that's good. Anyways, are you guys a fan of James Bond? Have you seen the classic films? And if so, what did you think of Dr. No? Let me know in the comments down below. As for YouTube, you know what to do. Hit the subscribe button if you like this review and would like to see some more like it. Hit the thumbs up button because that always helps out my channel. And don't forget about the little bell icon because that'll help notify you when I come out with my next review. And until then, peace out!